Hi, Ulyana.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Let me just turn the volume up.
How do you say your name? Ulana?
Ulyana.
Ulyana. Okay.
Yes, yes, a Ukrainian name.
That's beautiful.
Thank you very much. Thank you for agreeing to do this little meeting with me, Dr.
Sure.
Koerber.
Yeah. I was going to ask you a couple questions if it's okay.
Oh yes, of course, of course.
Okay. Well, how did you find the Mises Institute?
I found the Mises Institute through doing research on Austrian economics and liberty. Actually, I first came into contact with the Mises Institute before even knowing about Austrian economics. My first introductions to liberty education and free markets came from Milton Friedman and Ayn Rand. And from there, I discovered Mises, and from there, I discovered the Mises Institute and all the great work that they've done. And that made me very curious and interested in working with them, writing for them, and learning about Austrian economics specifically.
And then how did you learn about Nintendo Network?
Yes, so that's also a long story, but in short, I was already writing articles about free markets at that time, and I was involved with a different group also centered in Africa. It was the African objectivist movement, and through them sharing some of my articles and me just sharing more articles on LinkedIn and other social networks, the people from Mtindo um, started interacting with some of my content, and I started interacting with some of their content and seeing the African Liberty Camp, especially, was a very moving and compelling reason for me to potentially reach out to them. So I decided to bite the bullet, so to say, and the rest is history.
So then how did you learn about the divine economy theory then?
The divine economy theory, I learned about that through Mtindo. That was one of the top books that Mtindo was distributing. It was the book that we got a lot of feedback on, a lot of people saying that it changed their lives. It was their first introduction to macroeconomics, microeconomics, libertarianism, libertarian theory. That was, if a lot of people were saying that it was a really impactful book, I thought I should perhaps learn a little bit more about it. And I think now we've distributed maybe 10,000 copies or something like that of the book. And that's why I've wanted to speak with you more directly.
That's great. That's great stories. Thank you so much. So you've spoken with individuals who read the book and felt it was important and transformational for them?
Yes,
And you've heard,
definitely.
oh, okay. Well, how did this happen with your birthday celebration?
That was a real coincidence that so you were born on the 16th, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
yes, like a real coincidence that we were born on almost the same day. And the Mtindo Network leaders sent me that really nice video of them celebrating my birthday, and
That's
I'm sure
amazing. That
I'm
was
sure
so
I'm sure that they definitely celebrated your birthday there as well.
that was so sweet. Oh my gosh.
Yes,
They
yes, it was
were
probably the best
so
birthday gift
happy to
ever.
share their greetings with you.
Yes, it's beautiful people, beautiful people.
So that made me think and then when you mentioned Liberty Camp that maybe you've actually gone there, have you?
I have not
Oh,
yet,
oh, okay.
but that's the plan. Is sometime soon. Maybe not this year, maybe this year, but in the next couple years, I definitely do want to go down there.
Hmm.
Have you gone down there
I
by chance?
haven't. No, that's in my bucket list.
Oh, I'm sure you will be very, very, very well received there.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
that would be fun. Extremely fun.
So I was just curious in learning a bit more about divine economy theory and
Okay.
maybe making a little like a video series, something of that sort, discussing it. potentially. I've seen you've done something similar with I can't recall what the channel was, but it was some Christian channel, I think.
Oh yeah, I did that. Yeah. I had
So
had a series on a podcast that was called "Created in the Image of God."
right,
I did
yeah.
five interviews there. Yeah,
So those were some very in-depth interviews.
yeah.
I think I would be coming at it from a slightly different perspective
That was just
than
the
they
way
would.
they came for. Yeah, I'm
Right.
open to anything.
Okay. Okay. Definitely. Um, like I said, my first introduction to the libertarian and liberal ideas were from Milton Friedman and then Ayn Rand. And Ayn Rand had some interesting criticisms of religiosity and spirituality. So I would be interested in seeing kind of how the divine economy theory um, would react to those kinds of criticisms.
Yeah, well, I think you could kind of classify Ayn Rand as a materialist. You know, she's an objectivist and she's a materialist. And she really, and I guess it kind of follows naturally, not necessarily from objectivism, but from materialism that she's brought, that you could say she was atheist also. And so there's a small minority of people in the world that are atheists. Most are not, whether they realize, I mean, they have some belief in a greater existence than just what they can see, feel, touch, and hear. And so, uh, in that regard, the divine economy theory, and also which is really the divine economy theory is really a rekindling of the classical liberalism tradition, because the classical liberalism tradition was where monks and religious um, scholars try to understand human action using their knowledge that they had from their religious training and understanding. So, and then those are the ones who made the contributions that caused economics to be born. You know, they were seeds that were planted and germinated over time, and those thoughts then coalesced into what you would call economics. And anyway, so the divine economy theory is really the same foundation as classical liberalism, and it recognizes that uh, you know humans are spiritual, so they and if they're subjective and they're spiritual, then that's where Austrian economics comes in, because it uses the subjective methodology. So the subjective methodology is very powerful, and it's even more powerful when it recognizes, you know, what humans are really like, and what they're really like is they're unique. They're unique physically, they're unique intellectually, and then they're also spiritual beings. So all those things combine with the methodology of subjectivism is what the divine economy theory does. But it's really, and Austrian economics is part of classical liberalism also. And classical liberalism really, I think, because it's not really used as a defining point for like Austrian economists. There are Austrian economists who are atheists, you know, and they don't they for whatever reason are not aware of, or they're ignoring the history of economic thought, that it or that economics originated from spiritual uh, perceptions.
I see. So, what about people that say that although economics might have originated from spiritual thought, after the the world has kind of had a revolution in which we've started to base our decisions on data, on the senses, and this has kind of led to the abandonment of religions in some sense in some cultures. What about people that say that we've kind of outgrown our need for spirituality in economics?
Well, I think that was the big what basically that gave birth to statism, because what happened is the Protestant Reformation period is where the main enemy of the nation, of the state at that point, was the Catholic Church. And the reason it was the enemy, and I'm not talking about religion, I'm just talking about its status. It was universal, and it was wealthy, and the state wanted that wealth. It wanted to confiscate, and then it also wanted to diminish its opposition, because it was the force that could actually oppose what the state wanted to do. Because render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, So there was this power struggle at that period in time that made so the interesting thing historically, what was really cool was this is the same period when the printing press was invented. And so the state took advantage of that and used their wish to weaken their main opponent by distributing things that would shake the belief of people. So anyways, what happened is then that's also at the same time is science, not economic science, but natural sciences, is developing their science, their particular sciences like chemistry, physics, biology, and they use empiricism. And that was then kind of thought that this is a scientific methodology. Look what it's doing in these sciences. It's perfecting these sciences. And so there was this physics envy that took a hold of. So there were so many forces pushing at the realm of economics. You had the state. You had the evolution of sciences, and this perception that there's a scientific methodology, which really, if they knew enough at that point, they would have said, well, there's more than one scientific methodology, because humans are subjective, they're not empirical. But at that point, that was not developed, that thought. So then everything with the force of the state behind it, science and the idea that empiricism is necessary for advancement, and applying that to economics, then economics became a voice of this empirical approach. And so when you're in that realm, well, there's no need for God, because humans are doing that. Humans are doing the empiricism, and they're looking at the data and they're interpreting the data, and it's then God is out of the picture. So that's where the big I guess you could call it schism in economics took place. And it wasn't until Karl Menger in 1871 wrote Principles of Economics that the rebirth of this idea of this Aristotle approach to uh, economic thinking was reinvigorated, and that's what Austrian economics does. It separates itself from the rest of the economics, because the rest of economics is still in that dark ages of using the method that the state needed to grow, and that's what it did. It's grown ever since, and that's why Murray Rothbard is the enemy of the state, because it completely shatters everything it's built on.
When you say that humans are subjective and not empirical, do you mean that in regards to decision making? Because I know that in communist societies, the state takes on this role of calculating the best decision that could possibly be made. So, in what sense do you mean that humans are subjective and not empirical?
Well, it basically boils down to this simple fact that value is subjective. It's not intrinsic. Whatever there is, it only has value because a human gave it value. If there were no humans on Earth, value would be an issue that never would even come up. I mean, first of all, no one would think of it because there's no humans. But I mean, it's uniquely human, the idea of value. I mean, there's choices made by animals, but those aren't really in the same sense, the same kind of thing as human valuation. And humans value things based on what they know. If I'm from Ukraine and someone's from Uganda, and some item shows up, maybe a traditional food of Ukraine, the person in Ukraine is going to value that highly. The person in Uganda might not even care about it, or not like it even, and or just be neutral on the whole thing. So it all depends on each person, and it's individual. I don't value based on what others think. I value, okay, I grew up in a certain way. I have certain beliefs. I have certain experiences. That's what makes me decide how I value something, and that's unique to every individual. So no one else has that same complement of valuation, and which is why empiricism is impossible to make sense of anything, because data mean nothing. Because even first of all, I could say everything. And here's the other point that Austrians make clear, is that value is ordinal. It's not cardinal. So you value something relative to something else. I choose this rather than that. But that doesn't say that because I have an apple and an orange, I value an orange more. That doesn't, there's no price for that. It's just relative, but empiricism needs to then assign something to this and assign something to that. It's completely arbitrary, and it's imaginary, and it's unnecessary, because economics is the study of human action, and action is based on value, and value is subjective. So if you use the right methodology, then you can understand economics. And if you don't use the right methodology, you're just you're playing, you're pretending.
All right, so I think that's probably one of the key principles of the divine economy theory then, and all of Austrian economics, is that human value and human interpretation is subjective. then Rand, like going back to Ayn Rand, she
Yeah.
spoke about the importance of having a cohesive and overarching philosophy as opposed to scattered ideas about ethics and something else about politics and another thing for aesthetics. So for Rand, her overarching kind of philosophy and her theme would be that man must trust his rational mind and relentlessly pursue his rational self-interest. So I'm wondering if you kind of had a one sentence or one or two sentence theme of the divine economy theory.
Um, well, I guess I could say it like this, that um, humans are created in the image of God. And I think and so we want one sentence, okay? And part of that creation is not just what. Okay, so what that means is that all the names and attributes of God, humans are capable of being like that. They're capable of being courageous. They're capable of being merciful. They're capable of being loving. All those names and attributes of God, humans have that ability to reflect all of those. But there's one other thing about that creation that is not understood until you understand the divine economy theory, and that is also part of that creation is the gift of providence, which makes us social beings, and that's the economy. So, and it is a gift, and it's pure in its sense. But it if so, in other words, the idea of uh, trust in God, because that was given to us for us to prosper. If we don't trust in God and we try to change it ourselves, try to manipulate ourselves. Okay, here I'm rambling, I know. Okay, so humans have finite knowledge, okay, and but they operate within a milieu that's infinite. So we if we think we know what other people want, or we think we can change the economy according to our finite knowledge, all we're doing is corrupting it. We're adding impurities to something that is pure. In other words, if humans act and they're free to act, they will create, I guess you could say, the prosperity and peace. That's what they do. They'll voluntary. So there's no reason they benefit from voluntary social cooperation. Never does it not benefit them to do that. So if they're doing that and they're acting and they're doing it and learning, humans, they learn as they act. They act, they learn, and act on what they learned, and then they learn and they act. That's the cycle of how they act, how they function. So it's always progressive. It's always and so as long as they don't, and if they don't understand that it's a gift to them, then they're going to try to change it. And when they try to change it, then it creates an issue. It hampers. It's like, and Murray Rothbard talks about a hampered economy. It's a hampered economy when we don't let it laissez-faire. If we don't laissez-faire, leave your hands off of it, because it's a gift. That's what I know. That's a long way of saying it, and if I could probably give you a statement like you're talking about with Ayn Rand, but I'd have to kind of spend a few minutes to make it short.
Well, that's perfectly all right. It's a very cohesive philosophy for sure, incorporating all kinds of ideas. So I understand why it might be difficult. But going back to Ayn Rand again, I suppose I'm very interested in the element of spirituality in the divine economy theory, primarily because I suppose my introduction to these ideas were not from a spiritual background. And in fact, it was probably from a very anti-spiritual background because Ayn Rand, she was no fan of faith. She called faith the worst curse on mankind, the antithesis of reason. So I'm wondering, how do you view faith? How is faith defined for you? To people that are atheists and materialists, oftentimes they define it as belief in something in the absence of reason, which I can understand why that is destructive. But how would you define faith?
Well, reason is the exercising of faith. I mean, you choose something. Why do you choose it? Okay, so first of all, your value is subjective. There's no certainty. I mean, there's no intrinsic reality to your reason. I mean, to the choice that you made. You know, so when you make a choice, it's subjective, but it's not you. But it's also rational. All human decisions are rational, but because there's no the value. I mean, nothing has this intrinsic value. It's only value because you value it. Well, why do you value it? And when you make that choice, you're choosing it out of faith that the value you have is what you want, and it possesses it, or it reflects it. So there is no separation of reason and faith. I mean, I think where the difference is where people are talking about the 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 the, the negative things that have come from what's spoken of with faith, but there's negative things in science. There's negative, everything. You could always go in any direction on anything and see the negatives and say, well, see, that's bad. Let's not do it anymore. Okay, so let's not do science anymore. Look at all the bad things that have come from science. Do we just throw it away? So, but that's really not the issue. The issue is right at this moment, me, you, every human being, they make a decision, a rational decision, rational meaning they're using reason, but it's subjective, so it's faith. It's you can't separate the two. So that's what I would say.
Where would the supernatural be involved there? So you're making a decision, a rational choice based on your own subjective values. Why must there be a supernatural element to that?
Well, for the individual, there doesn't need to be. I mean, a person could make their choices, and they're making a choice that's based on faith. They're not rethinking it as in terms of faith. So, and even if they are speaking of even if they recognize that okay, reason and faith, in the subjective way, understanding of things are not separable. But that doesn't mean I have to believe in God, if that's what they would say. And that's true. No one's coercing anybody to do anything. But then we have to, it's only if we're going to be just, okay, if we're going to be just about it, then we have to also say, okay, well, it could be though. Yeah. So if we're saying it's not, okay, and you have the freedom to make that choice, and a lot of times, a person who, well, people have lost their faith, people have gained faith, and it all depends on something that's happened to them probably. and that they then have a change of perspective. But a person who maybe who believes in God would say that well, I think I forgot where I was going on that, but anyway, I think that those individuals can make whatever choice they want, and they can do it at whatever level they want to do it, or whatever, however they want to, what they want to attribute it to. But for me, the science of economics, which was, prior to these monks of the classical liberalism discovering things about economics, the knowledge of economics was going nowhere, So the divine economy theory rekindles that whole way of doing things, such that tremendous amount of knowledge about economics becomes available, because it's not constricted by this mental barrier that is unnecessary. So so say a person who's atheist and they start reading about the divine economy theory. The first two books that I wrote are hardly, I mean, an atheist who's not a militant atheist could read those and learn a lot about economics, and not feel a pressure, and not feel like there's anything beyond what they can feel, touch, and hear, see. Okay, and they could, there might be a little bit of, possible. Well, I can appreciate someone who feels a little differently and has more of a belief than I do about this a greater power or whatever, but they wouldn't feel like they couldn't proceed. But then the third book and the fourth book, it uses that same logic, and it breaks through those beliefs that keep a person from recognizing that it's okay. So here's the thing: why can't humans intervene in the economy? Why is it that when they do, they create more problems? They never solve the problem they were trying, and they just create more problems. Why is that? Well, the reason is because they're finite. They can't comprehend. Because if we got, I mean, 6 billion people in the world, I don't know how many, but each one is subjective individually. So there's no way one decision could fit everybody. And that's what they're doing when they're, and so why is that the case? Why? Because it's greater than they are. It's infinitely greater than they are. And what is a way of describing God? Is all knowing, omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, those are the qualities of God, so that's what the divine economy reflects. It is his gift to us, and it looks like that.
But on a more micro level, entrepreneurs and individuals, they have to trust their own senses and their own rational mind, however limited it might be, to make those decisions and to find success. And entrepreneurs have done that. Scientists have done that, and they've found success in doing that. Why is it that can't be the principle that's applied to the greater economy? Because the fields that they've been applied to in science and in business, those are also vast fields. Why is it the case that in the economy it is unique?
Well, we were talking about macroeconomics. So if we go then to talk about microeconomics, what divine economy theory does there is it finds where value comes from. So we talked about value as subjective, but you think, well, if we're talking about the science of economics, we should know where value comes from. But if you look to search the literature, you're not going to find anyone who can say where value came from. I mean, we know it's subjective, but where'd it come from? You know, how do you have a value? What is valuable to you? What do people value? So that's what the divine economy theory at the micro level does, is it tracks value back to its source. And its source is the appearance of the names and attributes of God. So I like fast cars. Why do I like fast cars? Because it's fast, it's powerful, it's sleek. These are the things that I'm attracted to. That's why I do it. What are they? It's beautiful. It's magnificent. These are the things that make me want that thing. That's where my values are. That's the origin of my values. And what are they? Those are the names and attributes of God. So you can't separate. And so an entrepreneur, if they want to have a product that people want, they might actually identify a product that they want. If they really want to understand that, and if they dig deep enough, they can find out the reason people want that is because of this. And this is what they value. And what they value is some kind of it's like a moth going towards the light. What is it that attracts them so that they value it? And it's a name or an attribute, but what is that? Where does that come from? Because we're spiritual beings, that's what we know, that's what we seek. So that's what I'm saying as far as micros. And so for entrepreneurs, it's very valuable for them to be able to go a little deeper into understanding what it is that they can offer that people, and because they kind of know what people, they're trying to find out what they want and then deliver it in some form, so.
There is a sort of non-spiritual way that people like Rand have addressed the issue of how others find value in something, where value comes from. She says that it's anything which is valuable is something that can empirically and rationally benefit you in some measurable way. So she doesn't involve any sort of greater being in explaining that. So you can say something like that car can benefit you and is valuable to you because it brings you long-term pleasure, or perhaps starting a business would be beneficial to you because it produces jobs in the economy and it provides a challenge to you, and challenges are beneficial to your personal growth.
Doesn't go deep enough. Doesn't track it to its origin. It's talking about external things. It's like you have a disease and you talk about the symptoms. You got to go all the way to the beginning. And that's the difference. Is all those things are true, what she's saying, but it doesn't go to the source. And if she's an atheist, she wouldn't be able to go there. But I'm not an atheist, so I did go there.
But you could still, even as an atheist, you could still definitely gain quite a lot from the divine economy theory. It sounds a little bit contradictory in a way that the atheist believes in the divine economy theory.
Right.
But there's a lot to gain even from a very materialistic perspective. Would you agree with that generally?
Well, that's the big stumbling block from the very beginning, because that's its name. And so many people, whether they're atheists or whether they're just suspicious or whatever, they don't want anything to do with it. That's not of interest to me. And I apologize for the name, because it does create, it's caused a barrier to be put there.